This probably goes without being said since you made it here to the membership. But my name is Shana Singleton, also known as the herpes goddess. And I found out I had genital herpes back in 2015 when I found out I was pregnant with my son. Go figure. I started advocating in 2019, since then growing the largest herpes awareness platform, providing tons of resources for the community and helping people relearn how to love themselves after a positive diagnosis. But I want to share you in a little bit on me and my personal story about when I found out I had herpes. At the time, I was 24, going on 25, stationed in the military, a station in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. I am an Army veteran, so that's why I was stationed in Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. I was at the time in a relationship with someone on and off for 2 years, 111. And it was toxic. I mean, I was toxic, he was toxic. We were just toxic for each other. Just to give you a little background on where my mindset was at when I found out. I had what I thought was a razor bump, and it was an extremely painful razor bump. They always say the first outbreak is the worst outbreak, right? I asked my boyfriend at the time to look at it. He looks at it. He's like, baby, it looks like a razor bump, but if it's really bothering you, go get tested. So I went to sick call. That's what you call going to the doctor in the military. And the doctor goes to look at my so-called razor bump, and she tells me that my herpes outbreak was a razor bump. The doctor was sure that my herpes outbreak was a razor bump, and I could have easily left her office thinking that I didn't have herpes and all I had was a razor bump. But that answer did not sit well with me. I didn't like it. I demanded that she test the area. I had to advocate for myself and make sure that she tested the area. She was tired of hearing my mouth, so she said, just to make you feel better, I'll test it, but I promise you, you have nothing to worry about. It's just a razor bump. If you don't hear back from me in 2 weeks, you have nothing to worry about. Okay. So I didn't hear back from my doctor in 2 weeks. I completely forgot that I even had the razor bump, which was really a herpes outbreak, but I completely forgot about that. Life goes on. I'm still having sex with my boyfriend. And again, I forget. Now I'm experiencing pregnancy symptoms. I'm throwing up 4 times a day. I'm sleeping all day and I am eating. I am just tired. Okay. Tired. Um, my boyfriend notices and he just goes, babe, go to sick call and go get a pregnancy test. I think you're pregnant. I'm in denial about this pregnancy. I took some at-home pregnancy tests that came out positive, but I still don't want to believe that I'm pregnant. So I go back to sick call to get a pregnancy test. I go to sick call, the same doctor, she comes in and she says, I have good news and I got bad news. What do you want first? Tacky, right? I know. So I'm like, okay, give me the bad news first and let's end it off with the good news. The doctor goes, bad news is you tested positive for HSV2. I had no idea what HSV2 was. She can tell I was confused, so she continues, you have genital herpes, just don't have sex during an outbreak. What? Okay, bad advice, by the way. Good news is you're pregnant. Okay. I don't know who the hell told her that was good news, but at the time being, finding out I was pregnant and finding out I had herpes did not sit well with me. To this day, I'm still waiting for the good news. Ironically, years later, they both turned out to be blessings in my life, but I didn't see it that way at the time. So I go to my car and immediately call my boyfriend. I call him and I tell him that I have herpes first. He seems taken back and he seems upset about it, but he's still willing to listen to what I have to say. Then I tell him that I was pregnant. And after I tell him I was pregnant, he was supportive of me and he told me we'll work through it and we figure out what we need to work through. Just come home. Okay. The stigmatized version of me couldn't believe that somebody would want to be with me after telling them that I had herpes. The stigmatized version of me didn't even want myself. The stigmatized version of me thought I was not deserving of love. So that acceptance of my status made me believe that he gave me herpes. I instantly wanted to blame him because in my head, if he's so okay with it, he must have gave it to me. The thing is, I never once gave myself a chance to think, wow, I've been with this man for over 3 years. I just told him that I'm pregnant with his child. We've been together for so long. He loves me. He's not going to abandon me as I'm going through this journey of becoming a mother. I didn't think that. I instantly thought the negative. I instantly thought that that was a mission. Now, I don't blame him for my herpes anymore. At the time, I didn't know herpes wasn't included in a full panel STD test. So I don't even know if I've been getting tested for herpes, and I could have been the one who brought the herpes to the relationship. I can't confirm or deny if he has herpes or not because I've never required to see his STD results. I was consenting to having intercourse with him without knowing for sure for myself whether or not he had anything. Another reason, herpes can lie dormant in your body for years before it decides to come up to the surface. So I don't blame anyone for my herpes, especially not him. And that was huge for me in my healing and breaking my own internalized stigma for myself once I was able to separate the two, right? I no longer wanted to be a victim. I no longer wanted to talk about someone who may or may have gained me herpes every time I had to talk about my herpes and talk about myself to someone new. I was ready to let that narrative go and replace it with a new one and just say that my sex health is my responsibility and my responsibility only. I had my son vaginally. No, he does not have herpes. They prescribed me with an antiviral medication at 32 weeks pregnant to take to determine my pregnancy. By the time I went to the hospital, they did a full examination of the birth canal to see if I was experiencing any symptoms or if I was having an outbreak. Once they realized I wasn't having any symptoms, they cleared me for a vaginal birth and I was able to deliver my baby herpes negative. Herpes does not live in your blood. It lives in your nervous system at the base of your spine, either your trigeminal ganglion or your sacral ganglion. So no, you can't genetically pass on herpes to your child. And that is just my personal story with herpes. In 2017, I decided to come off of antiviral medication. And in my journey of coming off of antiviral medication, I was experiencing back-to-back outbreaks because my body became reliant on the suppression medication and my antibodies weren't working the way they were supposed to work. But in the meantime, in between time, I spent 2 years body journaling to learn my own personal triggers and my own prodrome symptoms. I eventually learned what caused outbreaks, what didn't cause me outbreaks, what worked for my outbreaks, what didn't work for my outbreaks, what habits I needed to nip in the bud, what habits I needed to implement in my life. What I did that caused the outbreak to be there for a longer period of time, a shorter period of time. I learned my symptoms to tell when an outbreak was coming. And then I learned how to prevent the outbreak from coming whenever my prodrome symptoms appear. I teach you how to do this for yourself too in the Just Another Bump Along the Road ebook. If you are one of the stigma-free cousins, you have that already. It's already in your package. You can download your copy now. If you're a big cousin or just a cousin that shows up on a Thursday night, you can find it Just Another Bump Along the Road ebook on the heycousins.info website there for you. So yeah, I potentially silenced my outbreaks and I don't have to struggle with outbreaks anymore. I became an advocate in 2019 because quick background story. I started my self-love journey in 2017, and 2017 was the first time I did something for myself. And I decided to go back to college and get a second bachelor's degree in food science and culinary arts. Yes, I am a chef and a food scientist. In that, I started working as the plant-based recipe developer for Zencation retreats, and I found my spiritual community. Zencation retreats is all about elevation. So there I was introduced to sex coach, mind coaches, Reiki coaches, alchemists, shamans, storytellers, energy practitioners, and more. People were coming to see me cook, but they were coming more so for my self-love sermons. And the community named me a self-love coach. People are literally inspired to love themselves more through the way I love myself. And I realized that my purpose in this planet is to inspire people to love themselves more, even when I'm not around. My calling is herpes advocacy. I'm able to serve in my purpose in a magnitude I couldn't even imagine for myself for a long time. And that's how I got into herpes advocacy. I found myself in private Facebook groups for herpes. And these groups were just centers for people to trauma bond, complain and not do anything about it and just be okay with the narrative of the herpes stigma. Women and men wanting to unalive themselves, women and men saying that they're staying in abusive relationships or relationships they don't even want to be in because of their positive status. And this wasn't my narrative. And I wanted to change that, not only for myself, which I have, but for everyone else who may feel unseen or feel alone after a positive diagnosis. So I started herpes advocating in 2019. Since then, I have grown the largest herpes awareness platform of over 370,000 people. We do have our private support group. Type in the search engine, Hey Cousin Support Group or Support Group to find the password and to get yourself into the Facebook support group, okay? We show up for our support group meetings, cousins only, on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Then our big cousins, sorry cousins, but big cousins have a separate one. It's for big cousins and stigma-free cousins. We show up on Sundays at 7:30 p.m. And then all for my stigma-free cousins, we're doing the Rising Accountability Zoom calls, the book club Zoom calls on top of the 2 support groups that go for our outside cousins. So that's my story. That's how I got here. I've written several books, all catered to herpes. I am a member of the National Sex Health Coalition. I've been invited to attend the genital herpes workshop that was hosted by the CDC and the NIAID last year in November. I'm doing a lot of work here. I've spent years being my own test dummy, years interviewing thousands of people with herpes, coaching thousands of people with herpes, creating a community, collecting the data, seeing what works and doesn't work, doing the research. I am extremely knowledgeable when it comes to this herpes virus, and I do have the blueprint when it comes to breaking your own internalized stigma. I just ask that you do the work. I will give you the tools, but I need you to show up for you. And if you're my stigma-free cousin, you have all the tools because we're really elevating, not just in breaking our own internalized stigma, but we're elevating spiritually, financially, emotionally, in every way that we can possibly elevate. And I'm taking you on that journey with me. Welcome. Go to see your welcome video if you haven't seen your welcome video yet. I'm Shana Singleton, herpes goddess. I love you. I'm out.